Hello, I'm John Ryan for SportsMemo.com, and I'm pleased that you have chosen to join us on the Full Count Show, Major League Baseball, with Dr. Chuck and with Kevin Thomas, two of the biggest, most knowledgeable Philly sports fans I know, and I bet you we have 3 games to break down, and one of them, I bet you, is not going to be the stadium behind me, but a different team in red called the Philadelphia Phillies. But first of all, how are you doing, guys? Dr. Chuck, anything going on over there at Sports Memo? Your records, anything for sale tonight?
So I have a 10-unit play up. It's not just for reference to the game. It's not one of the ones we're going to be discussing. But yeah, we had thought we were going to have a 10-unit play earlier in the week. Got scratched. And we do have one that I like even better than that play. Off of a pretty solid day yesterday, except for the Blue Jays. Just that one loss, but a 5-1 day. So pretty solid. Turning it around. It wasn't a good week last week, so we're turning it back around, trying to get back on top of the leaderboards. And we have, for people that don't just want one 10-unit play, I also have a triple play package of 3 other plays as well as what we're going to talk about here.
Sounds awesome to me. Kevin Thomas, welcome to the show. You know the sport pretty darn well. You're a coach. Girls softball, which is cool, and you know the game quite well, and you're not afraid to wear your colors. That's for sure. What's going on with you, and how's everything at Sports Memo?
Sports Memo can't be better. I mean, right now, though, the biggest deal is the NFL preseason and the early bird NFL. So I'd head over to Sports Memo and start looking at those because as much as we can make in baseball, you know, all the big money and all the big bettors love the NFL season. I do have one MLB play you can still get today over there, a 4-unit, and it's fairly cheap, and I'm fairly sure it's going to win.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I love it. Earlier this week, I won my 6th in a row 5% max bet. I've never done a 10-unit in Major League Baseball. That may come, I don't know, but it seems to be working without doing that. And that's over the last 12 months. So I was pretty pleased with that. It was the 3-0 Atlanta win over the St. Louis Cardinals playing under the total. You got to love it when you don't sweat even a drop. Anyway, let's get to the games here. And it's an exciting weekend. I mean, marquee game is obviously the Red Sox are hosting the Yankees. That was quite an entertaining game last night. I was on the losing end of that for the show as I hosted this yesterday. I had the Red Sox, but it was close. 6-5 is pretty good. We also played the over, which won, and the team totals over, which won. So it ended up being pretty good, just that the Red Sox didn't win. But this matchup here is another good one of National League kind of rivals. It wasn't too long ago that Adam Wainwright ended the Phillies season in Philadelphia in the NLCS, and it was also the last play with Ryan Howard rupturing his Achilles tendon, and Adam Wainwright was on the hill, and he pitched a complete game. I believe the final score, guys, was 1-0. But he really isn't the same pitcher now that he's 40 years old, and he's going up against Zach Wheeler, who has every possible part of his game going. I'll say what I'm going to say. I want to hear what you guys have to say first in this matchup, but I definitely lean towards the Phillies here initially just because they're playing well, and it looks like they're going to continue playing well. Schwarber Bombers now is what Philly calls the home runs by Kyle Schwarber. Let's start with Dr. Chuck and see what he's got for this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. This is an interesting spot because these two teams, much like baseball does sometimes, these two teams played each other in Philadelphia just last week. Only one series in between. Philly took 2 of those 3. These two pitchers faced off against each other there in Philadelphia, where Wheeler, pitched amazing. I'm not big into the ERA, but he had a 0. His FIP was pretty excellent as well, which was 2. Wainwright didn't pitch very well, and this is still post Bryce. This is not with Bryce in the lineup. Wondering how guys were going to react with Castellanos never really getting going to start with Bryce in the lineup, but the Phillies have kind of responded. And in these matchups, it's really interesting to try and parse out what these two teams are going to do when they faced this team just less than a week ago. I mean, we're talking these two played on Sunday. Wheeler gave up, I think, 1 hit in 7 innings or something along those lines. Wainwright's ERA was exactly the same as his FIP. This is interesting because depending upon where you like to get your bets down and when you like to get your bets down, you may not have ever seen that the Cardinals were favored in places. But I mean, this has moved 40 cents from the most from the earliest spot this opened yesterday. And so it's pretty interesting because, one of the general principal bets stolen from Scott Van Pelt or Dave Koken, the great Dave Koken always says, who does he trust more, the sharp money or the bookmakers? He's a bookmaker guy. And so in a general principle play, he would almost just take the Cardinals because of this enormous move. But sometimes when the move is like this, where you're not even really having to pay a whole lot more than you would have had to get on the Phillies, I can't imagine fading Wheeler. Maybe if you didn't want to deal with the Cardinals maybe winning the game late, Wheeler on the first 5, which is probably going to be even juiced more because of what happened last week. I don't think Wainwright's just going to all of a sudden get this figured out. It's interesting that John brought up, it shows how doggone old Adam Wainwright is, and we're talking about Ryan Howard and Chase Utley on a team that won it all, I think, which was 15 years ago. So, I mean, this guy's definitely going to be a Hall of Fame contender, but I wouldn't want to be on the side of him tonight, and I don't think I'd want to be on the under either, which is where I would lean normally because of Wainwright, just in case.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Chuck. I really do. The one thing I really wanted to mention here before Kevin takes over, because I'm sure he has a lot to say about this game. Wainwright's lost his last 3 starts to the Phillies, and he's pitched very well in all 3 of them. He hasn't gotten shelled once. He's allowed 4 earned runs in the last one, last week, obviously the 4-0 loss on Sunday. But overall, it hasn't been his deterioration. It's just he hasn't won, and it's 3 in a row now. Wondering if that weighs on him. And also Kevin, I think you were the one that told me the Philly media was just ripping the bullpen about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Well, it's good that they didn't listen because they wouldn't have the ERA they have now. 0.74 over the last 7 games, 0.781 whip. They obviously have it together, which makes me even more confident with Wheeler on the hill. Because if he does run in trouble, it's not the end of the world like you would think before with that Philly bullpen at the levels it's pitching at now. Punch some holes in that if you can, Kevin, or I guess just agree with me. But what do you have for us?
Yeah, I tend to fade teams that are on a bad road trip that come home because they won against the Braves last night. And that's another thing. That game went 11 innings. And Matthew Lebatar, he only made it 4.1 innings of that. So they went through 5 bullpen pitchers to win that game. So last night, that line, you could have got the Phillies at plus money. Basically because there's 2 Phillies that are hitting Wainwright pretty hard, and that's Hoskins and Realmuto. So you can pitch around those 2 guys and take care of these Phillies hitters. I believe Wainwright can do that. But I don't think the bullpen, now that they used all those guys, they're back home after an emotional win. I think that's why we got that juice. We got all that 40-point swing right there. And you can't bet against Wheeler. 7 innings, 4 hits, 5 strikeouts. And if you watch that first meeting, I mean, they were getting big into pitch counts with him. So he likes to get the velocity up and overpower guys. And you're not going to do that against these Cardinals hitters. I might lean towards the over, like Dr. Chuck, but I would definitely take the Phillies here minus 130. I just think Molina, I think he's a huge part of that Cardinals team. Most catchers are if they're all-star catcher, especially when a pitcher's so used to them and stuff. So I would lean towards the Phillies here. I would think Hoskins maybe gets a home run here too, but I would take the Phillies minus 130. But I would creep on that over. I think it's 7.5. I just have a feeling that there might be 8 runs scored in this game. So, but I do like the Phillies minus 130.
Okay, and the thing I liked most in that last start by Zach Wheeler is he was first 3 innings. It took 60 pitches for him to get through those innings. Then and with the credit to the pitching coach, they decided to go softer. And what that means is that you pitch to contact. You throw the ball more in the middle part of the zone, and you have the confidence knowing that your stuff is good enough to keep the ball in the ballpark and not get absolutely hammered, which worked to perfection because then it was 48 pitches over the last 4 innings, and that's why he completed 7 innings, allowing 0 earned runs and just 4 hits. But he did only have 5 strikeouts, which is a little bit lower than his norm. Do you think St. Louis will be able to adjust to that, being that it was only less than a week ago?
I do, because they got the young guys like Carlson and Norman. Those guys, they're getting better and better for the Cardinals here. But the big thing is, you can't tell me in the back of Wheeler's mind he's not thinking he has to strike these guys out with that defense. I mean, yeah, the Phillies have been playing better defense as of late, but my God, over the beginning of the season, you can mark them for 4 errors every game. So you can't tell me in the back of his mind he's not trying to mow guys over. And like Goldschmidt and Arenado, those guys are hitters, man. They want that fastball up in the zone, and they're going to crush it. So, like I said, I still like the Phillies here minus 130 just because the bullpen's rested. Wheeler's going to get you 6.5, 7 innings here. I think Wainwright does the same thing, but then we're going to get to the bullpen, and both teams have hitters. I mean, you can't – there's nothing about it. I mean, everyone wants that long ball. So I would definitely look at that over 7.5.
And that's a good point you brought up with the pitching and contact. Kevin said exactly right. If he's going to do that again, it's not going to work out, and you're really going to want to have been on the over. Or, like John said, don't do it pre-flop, and you get a no runs in the first inning and a no runs in the second inning, and suddenly you're looking at a somewhat juiced 5.5 going into the third, and it's gravy. Like Kevin was saying, but the problem is if you're looking at an over, and I'll make it quick. Adam Wainwright, just watch the stats, and I'm sure it's just science, unfortunately, and biology. But I mean, the dude is a swing and miss rate is less than 7%. His chase rate's 20%. I mean, those are both like 10 points off what he needs to be. Just in 2020, he was 11 something swing and miss rate. I mean, it's not, he's pitching to contact because he doesn't have a choice at this point. And so then that doesn't work well with the way the Phillies hitters have stepped up. And it's just, the Phillies also have a full 5-point VMI advantage here if we're looking at that. And so I just think you're not going to want to be hoping that this game ends on 7 runs.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well done, gentlemen. Let's move on to the San Francisco Giants, third in the National League West, and basically in trouble now. Losers of 6 of the last 7 going into the last night. Sam Long is on the hill, limited sample size, 0-1, ERA 1.69 against Blake Snell, the veteran, who is winless. That is hard to believe that a guy that was that good with Tampa Bay is now this bad and struggling. 0-5, 5.13 ERA. Initially, my thoughts are if there was ever a time for the Giants to get a really needed win, this would be it. But first, I want to hear what Dr. Chuck has to say about this matchup.
Well, I mean, if you want to jokingly keep this on the doctor medical side of it, the theme here is on offense is anemia. Goodness gracious. These two teams, I mean, Blake Snell, you can't get – okay, I hate wins. I hate losses. So I do know that he has a bagel in the win column, and it frustrates me to say it out loud because I don't care. But – he's been pitching so well, especially early in games. He is prone to having that inning, and it has usually not paid off well, especially with the way the Padres are hitting, with in and out of the injuries. They're a little healthier than they were, but still no Tatis. On the other side, I guess Long is going to be the long reliever, I guess, behind Luttrell here as an opener. So that would kind of lean me towards Kepler's going to be cute with it all game, which is not good for the Padres. The Giants haven't shown the ability either. They did finally get some wins that they really had to have. But I mean, I can't imagine. I'm on the under. I would probably have played this under 6.5. Honestly, there's a pretty solid system inside the division where when you have that low of a scoring game inside of a series, especially when it's both teams, not just like a 4-0 shutout, but a 2-1 game, almost 70-75% of the time, you're going to really be successful with that next under. There's nothing really that's benefiting these two teams. As far as park factors for run goes, Petco is the Great American Ballpark antithesis. It's number 30, just like Great American is bringing in the runs, better than Coors is. Petco is inhibiting the runs, even better than Camden's left field wall. And I just, I think we might possibly see a game where Snell gets it a little bit put together, gets himself out of trouble, and this is like a 0-0, 1-1 game. It goes to extra innings again. Now, we don't want to go extra innings if you have an under because it's dangerous with the ghost runner nowadays, but I just can't imagine. If I like to expand lines and give out plays, or I expand lines sometimes, if you want to find yourself an under 4.5 and play that at what might be plus 250, I'd condone it.
Well done, Dr. Chuck. Kevin Thomas, where are you taking us with this matchup?
Just like he said, with Sam Long starting, this is going to be a bullpen session. And last night, I mean, if I'm Logan Webb, I'm asking to be traded today. I mean, that guy pitched a gem. What do you go, eight innings? I mean, he can go to the Phillies and give us 7 innings. We'll give him some runs. But that bullpen's rested. I mean, both bullpens, they didn't have to be used at all. I mean, Joe Musgrove on the other side pitched an even better gem. I know he went 7 innings, but I mean, if I'm Logan Webb, I'm disgusted with my team right now and the run support that they're putting up. That Sam Long, back to him, he's had 8 appearances at home and given up 1 earned run at home. So I'm definitely taking that under. And yeah, I might buy it down to 6.5 to get the plus money on that as well. But I'm actually looking at the Giants here. Not a fan of the Giants. I always say when Posey left the team, the heart of the team left. Gate Kapler, not a huge fan of analytics, but he's going to go to the bullpen, and I think the relievers, I think they come in and like Dr. Chuck said, I think we see a 1-0 game, and they're 7 games back of the Padres in the division, so they need to win. This is a must win, so he's going to throw everything he can at them tonight.
And I guess it's not, we weren't breaking any news by you, and I just now noticed the analytic chart that's up there. All I see is under and zeros.
Well, I did that deliberately, I think. I knew, like Nostradamus, that you guys were going to be leaning the under.
Right.
Yeah, but it's an interesting situation. You bring up Logan Webb, which would be huge for a team like the Philadelphia Phillies to acquire. That is, to me, a missing piece of that team. The bullpen seems to be good now. Hitters seem to be even better than expected without Bryce Harper in the lineup. I'll direct this at Kevin real quick. When does San Francisco become a seller ahead of the trade deadline? Knowing that they're only 2 games out of the wild card, the Phillies are the 3rd team in the wild card right now. The Braves are obviously the 2nd.
If they win tonight.
If they win tonight?
I think the Cardinals hold the 3rd, don't they? NL wild card.
Well, they might be tied with the Phillies then.
Yeah, I think if they win, they'll be the 3rd wild card. I'm not sure, but I think if the Cardinals win, then the Cardinals keep that 3rd NL wild card.
Both teams are 5 games over 500, and Philly has just a slightly higher win percentage, 529 to 530. So they're basically in a dead heat for that 3rd spot. But San Francisco's 2 games behind them. San Diego's plus 3.5 in the wild card. When do you think San Francisco will say enough's enough? We're too old to do this, and we're going to start being sellers?
I don't know. I'm hoping sooner than later. I would say the next month, if they don't catch the Padres, I mean, are either team going to catch the Dodgers? Like you said, right. The Dodgers are just going by. I mean, you never know when they're going to show up. You get like a minus 280 and they lose outright because they know they're going to be there in the end. So I think if they get like 15 to 18 games behind the Padres, I think then it becomes a seller's market. It should be. I mean, they can free up so much money and get some young talent in there.
Yeah, I agree. If they lose 7 of the next 8, I think it's almost a shoo-in and they start unloading, and they're going to have a lot of assets that a lot of teams are going to be interested in. So it'll be fun to see.
Imagine if he went to the Phillies, though. Then they would. Where would they put Ranger? Would they put Ranger in the bullpen? The setup man?
I would have to think so. I mean, you can't do anything else.
Just before we jet off to the Blue Jays and Mariners, I will be the contrarian. I don't want to be called Skip Bayless, but I will gladly tell you that I have no feeling at all that they will sell. This team won 60 times after July 1st last year. I don't think I don't think selling is even a question. I think in the one wild card day, I think maybe some of these guys would be up for grabs. I think this team is going to probably make a wild card, and I have a feeling that if anything, they buy. But that's just being contrarian here.
Well, then we'll have to have another show for that discussion because I'm completely on the other side of that reservation.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fun though, you know?
Yeah.
Let's move on to the third and final game here. Toronto Blue Jays, which is another polarizing team, fourth in the American League East. Seattle Mariners, second in the American League West, playing much better than they did earlier in the year. Still very tough, struggling offensive team to back with your hard-earned money. They're even at 42-42 in the season. I still have not seen any pitchers listed for this event, but I'm sure you guys probably know who they may or have already assigned to this game. Let's start with Dr. Chuck and see what he knows and where he's going to take us to the window with a possible bet.
Yeah, so I think it should be Stripling and Kirby. That's what I have, which would both be just regular starters. I don't know if that's what KT has or not, but for clients know that I was pretty big on, a lot of the metrics for Marco Gonzalez don't match up, and the Blue Jays spent so much of the last month just absolutely slaughtering left-handed pitching. It's just inexplicable what's going on with this team. And maybe it is the youth and just you get into these slumps and no one, I think they probably need one guy like George Springer to be bringing them out of this or something. And it's just not happening. And they've not had the pitching period, especially losing Ryu, I suppose. I wasn't super a big fan of him either. I kind of like Ross Stripling, but this just isn't going to work out. This is one of those situations where it's like I was joking. You combine a couple of teams together, like the Orioles offense and the Marlins rotation. I mean, the Blue Jays offense or entire lineup and the Padres starting rotation is barely losing a game. It almost feels like you mentioned Musgrove last night, and he's probably what they thought was going to be their fourth starter coming into the season. And it's just, what's going on with the Blue Jays offense? I don't understand. I don't know how you go into a game like last night with Marco Gonzalez coming off of that win, which they were joking on MLB tonight that if they get swept by the Oakland Athletics, what do they do next? And we could probably start talking about selling on that side. But I can't get involved in the side here. Another huge movement with the books being kind of like forced into a corner. What do we do with these Blue Jays? Can we really hang them as a dog? And so they didn't. And of course, it's pretty much even, I think, now. If I had to take a side, I would take the under because I just don't think the Blue Jays are going to do their part. And I kind of like George Kirby to continue this. And he's got far better metrics for projected out into the future stats than Marco Gonzalez. And he had no trouble last night. Stripling is better as well. And I just, if you give me an 8.5, I'd probably take the under. I'd probably take the under first 4.5 also, but I would not be involved pre-flop in the side of this game.
Fair enough. I like the breakdown as always, Dr. Chuck. Let's see what Kevin Thomas has for us in this West Coast matchup.
I couldn't agree more with Dr. Chuck. And the one guy he brought up is George Springer. Where is he? Why is he on the bench? Why is he not playing? I mean, last two games, if he's not in the lineup, I'm not touching the Blue Jays, and and I would definitely lean on the under because this guy sets the tone. They have to pitch him. I mean, remember when he was with the Astros, him and Carrera and all those guys? It was a mean bunch of guys to pitch to, and he sets the tone. Even if he is in a slump, he still draws walks. He still moves runners around. When that lineup rolls over, they have to pitch to him. So without him in the lineup, I'm not scared of the Blue Jays. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were talking about them being the top AL East, and look at the Yankees destroying those numbers. But I'm looking at the young guys over here at the Mariners. I mean, no one even talks about Julio Rodriguez or anything. And Ty France is back, 2 games back. And, I mean, the guy's a beast, crushing the ball. I don't think it's going to be any problems for the Seattle Mariners here, especially with no George Springer. I don't know what – they're not saying anything. He's not on the injury report. I don't know if they gave him a rest day. I don't know if he was being punished or anything. But I would definitely take the Mariners minus the 110 in this one.
It is a mystery. It is a complete mystery to me. George Springer coming off a hitless game especially when he was with Houston, it also applies to Toronto. The team bounced back the next game, whether he hit or not. And it was an amazing little angle that I used to use quite a bit, but
Yeah,
now I can't
exactly.
trust because we don't know where he is. Was he abducted by aliens in New Mexico or something? I mean, we don't know. And their lips are sealed in the press conferences. When are you going to put George Springer back in? And it's almost like a Belichick press conference. We're on to Cleveland. We're on to Cleveland. Next question. We're on to Cleveland. So that's a great point. It really is. It's a mystery.
Something's not right. And like Kevin said, I mean, Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. are phenomenal talents, but they're not that. I mean, it's
They're not the
same.
spark.
Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman are phenomenal talents, but when you have to face George Springer, and he might, I mean, didn't he set some sort of leadoff home run record also? I mean, he's just scary as hell to throw 8 pitches to before you get to Bichette and Kirk and Guerrero, and it's just not the same. No.
Especially the second and third time through the lineup when runners are on base, and then you got that situation. That is high pressure for a pitcher. I don't care who's on the mound. It could be Gonsolin. That's still nerve-wracking for that pitcher. Let's move on to the final round here, the best bet of the show. I'll lead off here because I'm much like George Springer, I guess. But real quick, I'm just going to go with the Phillies tonight. I like that bet as a 4%er, really. But I want to split it. I'm going to split it with a 2% on the Phillies and 2% over the team total, which personally my models are projecting that they could score almost double what the line is. So, take your pick. You could put 3% on the team total over, 1% on the Phillies. You could do 3% and nothing pre-flop and hope that the Cardinals score first and then get the Phillies. Whatever combination of that, I think is a sound strategy. Just have a plan in place before the game starts. You can't do live in-game betting successfully if you don't have a plan and you try to wing it during the game. Let's move over to Dr. Chuck for his best bet wisdom.
So we are looking at a pretty common system for clients that I have already put out. I love to put out plays on these shows that sometimes are already client plays just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. But this one we just won with over the weekend and have been winning with most of the season because the dude is 14 out of 15 games. And the guy I'm talking about is Andy Fletcher, who is a home plate umpire. That is the guy manning the mask tonight in the Tigers versus White Sox game. And on top of the fact that 14 of the 15 games he's umpired this season have gone under, the one that went over was 8, and it was a 5-3 game. Well, we get 8.5 today. As long as we waited around, I saw this open last night and thought 7.5 is interesting. But I kind of want to see what goes on here because I already love the divisional system where both teams scored 2 or less runs inside of a series, and that's a pretty much automatic underplay. And on top of that, the guy manning first base last night was Andy Fletcher, and so I was very intrigued to see where this went. It's gone up a whole run. Now, some places are dropping, shops are down to 8, and I'm okay with 8. 8.5 obviously is ideal if you can get that. But on top of that, you get Skewball versus Giolito, which are both guys that have kind of been really flubbing it up recently, but it really helps when you haven't gotten your groove together to play offenses like the Tigers and White Sox are rolling right now. And, Giolito has an unbelievable arsenal with that changeup that's insane, hasn't looked great. Tony Finn said on Manny's Pub a couple weeks ago that he might be dead. It might be over, but he's shown a little bit of sign of life since then. Skewball has been a guy that we've backed since his major league career started. Hasn't looked as great either, but coming from the left side in this situation, it's just too many runs. Another spot where I'm totally glad to take an Andy Fletcher 6.5. 6.5 was over the weekend. Game ended 2-1. Really never a threat of any amount of runs or rallies. And this guy, people wonder, how much does the home plate number take into account? The dude doesn't issue walks. The dude has a K boost that's almost 1.2, which is pretty much higher than everybody else. And it's just not a situation, especially with a couple of strikeout pitchers, that you'd want to be on anything but the under here. And I thought 7.5 was great. I think 8.5 is nearly 5-unit type worthy. And so I'm all over this. And it's not a bad spot because these type of games, Andy Fletcher has also allowed runs in the first inning, and it doesn't matter. There was a run in the first inning over the weekend, 2 runs scored the rest of the game. And so it's pre-flop, like John said, have a plan. Let's say someone hits a home run or a leadoff home run in the first inning, it's going to be 9.5. Get it right then again.
I love that idea. I love the idea because you're right. There is a tendency to score in the first inning, and you'll get that bonus. There's no question. In fact, I'd almost be pizza money to bet over in the first inning in that matchup. Kevin Thomas, tell us what your best bet is for this show today.
I'm going with the Kansas City Royals at home. I watched this line open up, and I thought it looked a little fishy at first. Playing the Guardians. Guardians have been horrible on the road. They played the Yankees and the Tigers, and I don't even think they won in July. I'm not even sure. But then I looked over at the Royals, 3-4 on the road, and they're coming home after facing the Astros in a pretty competitive competition there. So I think the Royals, they get fresh legs back at home, and I think they take care of the Guardians, who may be looking for the All-Star break a little early. This is all just watching the line move. That's pretty much how I picked this one.
Great stuff, Kevin.
Love it.
I know that all 3 of us are going to be tuning in on ESPN at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time to see the results of the All-Star ballot. But before we get to 7 o'clock, I want everyone to get over to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button before you watch the results of the All-Star balloting, and do us a favor, get a subscribe and smash the notification button, the bell. Then when we start football shows, which I'm going to start be doing pretty darn soon right now, and it might even be next week, you'll be notified of any new shows that are coming on board. And you can watch them archived or live, whatever format you want. But you'll always know what is on our schedule ahead of time. And that's very important. So, guys, that's it for the Friday show. Unfortunate we have to end it. I know if we were doing Manny's Pub Show, we'd be about we wouldn't be halfway done. Tony Finn would still be doing his breakdown of Giolotti, But I love that umpire breakdown. I love the breakdowns by Kevin Thomas. Before I let you guys go, real quick, just any final thoughts or anything you forgot to mention about Sports Memo this weekend? Let's start with Kevin.
Yeah, this is really nothing about Sports Memo, just about the NFL, checking out the NFL packages going on over there. Some great deals going in there. But if you're going to take a flyer on a guy, Derek Hall, the Phillies, he's going to be after Hoskins. Does Wainwright pitch to Hoskins, or does he pitch around him and Derek Hall punches one out? I would take Derek Hall for a home run tonight. Lock it.
Yeah,
I like that one. Dr. Chuck, what do you got going tonight?
Yeah.
Starting on your happy hour yet?
Oh, yeah, it is. It's always, especially on Feel Good Friday. But yeah, like Kevin said, college football, you can get right now. I think the deal is still good through the weekend. My college football, you get the entire season. We were number 1 at Sports Memo last season. You get the entire college football season and the second half of MLB thrown in there for the same price, which is also discounted. So that's a pretty good deal if you want. We are not number 1 at MLB right now, but we were last year, but we're working our way back up.
A lot of number 1s, that's for sure. I was actually number 1 last year NFL preseason, 67% against the number. But you're going to do well getting Kevin Thomas or Dr. Chuck or any of the other guys at sportsmemo.com as well. So I think that'll bring us to the end of the show today, guys. I appreciate your time, your energy, your enthusiasm, and most importantly, your expertise. So we'll be back again on Monday with another edition of the Full Count Show. So until then, remember the 2 things I always like to say. Bet with your head, not over it, and may all the wins be yours. Thanks a lot for watching. Good luck this weekend. We'll see you on Monday.